Today we're talking the final collapse of the Republic Universal Specialization Deathwatch Warrior. And I'll be honest with you, I really hope this tree sucks, because I have a very dear friend of mine who absolutely loves Mandalorians, and I really enjoy seeing him sad. So fingers crossed, it's a disaster. Oh, I'm getting kind of crazy flashbacks. This is very similar in at least some ways to the Bounty Hunter Gadgeteer from Edge of the Empire, the core rulebook, which then was sort of a close quarters combat specialist with what people said was a mechanical focus, but really just had it as a career skill and didn't really have a mechanical focus. But thematically had talents which sort of brought the idea to life of someone who tweaks their gear mechanically, but it's not actually the role of being the mechanic with the skill check. And also there's intimidation thrown in. There is a bit of that here. So if you like Gadgeteer, but you want it different in some way, I haven't read the thing yet, we'll find out. If you want it different in some way, maybe this is one for you. First of all, intimidating. Is there a tree in this book that doesn't have intimidating or a version of it? Most of the universal specs have intimidating, or the other talking check equivalent of intimidating. Good talking defense, good at intimidating people. You can be a decent enough talker if your will's decent enough and you're just going through life intimidating people and you're not worried about the backlash that could happen from that. So hopefully there's another talker to help fill in the gaps and give another tool to your guys' talking toolbox. But yeah. So that's the thing you can do. Armor Master to help make you super tough. You just wear armor better, get some defensive bonuses because of that. Basic, improved. Now we have another great talent, To the Death. Very Mandalorian. Basically, it's an awesome defensive talent, but also offensive. It deals with critical hits in both directions for you. So that is amazing. And already I want to pair this with the Bounty Hunter Assassin from the core book. Or maybe Bounty Hunter Martial Artist who already had the critical manipulation. That would be really nice. Anyway, so this tree does not have the Tinkerer and Jury-Rigged and the stuff that makes you feel like someone who tweaks their own gear, but you don't actually do it. It just kind of seems that way, sort of. Instead of having talents that help you buff your gear, you have talents that buff how you work with a specific piece of gear. As you might have guessed from the picture, it's a jetpack. You specialize in jetpacks. We got quite a few talents that deal with it. And a lot of these talents really mesh well together, so we do have some strain management for your jetpack, not you, but the system strain. You can manage that on your jetpack, which will definitely come in handy because there is a really powerful attack talent which can knock people around, so there's some crowd control there, area of effect damage. It's really awesome. Some of the Old Republic bounty hunter players, that all 17 of you, might recognize this, but that will have a cost of some system strain amongst other stuff. So having a way of managing that will definitely be helpful. Also, with your jetpack, it's really big on movement, on staying really close and moving around. So you can use your momentum to do more damage by charging into them. It should be noted that one, it's not required that you use your jetpack for that, but if you are using your jetpack, you'll get more use out of it. And also, it's for melee. It doesn't say it. Obviously, it makes the most sense for melee, but it says in the description. You have to flip to it. I always tell you, flip to the description to find out how your things actually work. And in order to help with that, you do have the ability to do hit and runs. You have more movement within the shorter ranges with a talent. And also, you have a talent, which, again, not restricted just to jetpack stuff, but you just plain do more damage, like the Bounty Hunter Gadgeteer. You're just better at attacking at the shorter ranges. So all of this stuff just blends together really nicely, and there's a good amount of stuff that helps you in general on the ground, but also with your jetpack. So, like a previous talent tree, there's a bit of sub-specialization here, and that sub-specialization does not come at the cost of just being useful in a more general sense, to where you feel like you're at a disadvantage just for picking this tree, although I guess technically it shouldn't matter because it's a universal spec. It's going to be your second one. But again, all players should be able to use a universal spec as their first one. I command it. Oh, we get some active defense against ranged attacks, and that's about it. So is it worth it to just focus on this tree? Yes, this is a pretty good combat tree. You can also talk on the side, and I guess maybe be a mechanic person you got as a career skill. If you have a spare 3, maybe put an intellect, but whatever. You're a combat tree who can talk on the side for the most part. And you have decent enough decisions to make. It's not like it's filled to the brim with passives. There's a fair amount of passives, mostly passives, but you have an active defense. you have a big attack, when to use that. And you also have this mechanic where you move around to do more damage with melee, which is kind of nice. And I guess there could be interesting decisions involved with positioning. Sometimes it wouldn't be worth it, or maybe it's worth it to fly around or to move around and to do more damage here, but it makes you more vulnerable. Or it also can be used to escape. And all in all, you'll be pretty effective at the role of combat and a pretty decent talker. So as far as builds go, you mostly shoot, and also you mostly not die, hopefully. Having a solid brawn is going to be good. A 3 is perfect if you want to do a 4 agility. I think that works really well. Again, you have a talent that will help you with hitting people, and also you have talents that help you with shooting. Plus you fly. You're going to want to focus on piloting at least a little bit, so it kind of fits well to where you might focus on piloting as a role, even though you do get it as a career skill. Kind of. One of them. If you're going to have 1-4, agility is probably the way to go. 3 brawn, and that will be just fine. You have so many defensive talents that a 3 will be just fine. And then 3 in will for coercion, I think, is ideal. But of course, as you all know, you don't have to pull my leg for a recommendation for a 4-4 build. And so obviously, brawn and agility, yeah, you'd be a pretty solid powerhouse with that. Plus that intimidation talent is pretty good. Even if you just have a 2 in will. Now make sure you get that free rank in coercion if you're allowed to take this as your first one, which you should be allowed to take this as your first one, but if not, just focus on that coercion skill a little bit. 2 in will with the talents. You can intimidate and coerce pretty well with that, and so it is easier to justify the 4-4 brawn and agility, I think. But yeah, this is a pretty solid tree. Not the most interesting combat tree, I think, to play, but solid, and certainly not the most boring one. Anyway, that is it for today. If you like this video and want to see more, we are going to return to Collapse of the Republic in December. And that's because, and I really didn't want to spoil anything, but it's because in December, we're doing something really special. December, we're going to